Alaska and Washington State were found to have sharply risen in the last 10 to 15 years. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Protests in the streets of Honduras continue nearly 6 weeks after President Manuel Zelaya was ousted in a military coup. Riot police used tear gas and water cannons and a crowd of hundreds of protesters calling for Zelaya's return. Clashes have erupted more frequently after the coup government warned last week it would no longer tolerate street blockades. Meanwhile, soldiers have occupied state hospitals after some 15,000 nurses and other hospital workers declared an indefinite strike. They join tens of thousands of public school teachers who've been striking for weeks. Further protests are expected in the coming days, with more Zelaya supporters marching to Tegucigalpa from various regions of Honduras, expecting to converge on the capital on August 10th. The protests come as the Organization of American States agreed Wednesday to send a delegation to Honduras sometime next week. They want acting President Roberto Micheletti to accept a Costa Rican plan under which Zelaya would return to power until new elections can be held. Zelaya, meanwhile, has called on the U.S. to use its trade leverage over Honduras to pressure the coup regime. But the Obama administration is showing signs of retracting its stated support for his return. In a letter to Republican Senator Richard Lugar, the State Department said U.S. policy in Honduras, quote, is not based on supporting any particular politician or individual. Rather, it's based on finding a resolution that best serves the Honduran people and their democratic aspirations. The letter also criticizes Zelaya for taking provocative actions that led to his removal. It also says the U.S. has still yet to determine whether Zelaya's ouster constituted a military coup. Well, today we host a debate on the situation in Honduras. Lanny Davis is an attorney for Honduran Business Leaders Group and the former special counsel to President Clinton. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Joining us on the telephone is Grandin, professor of Latin American history at New York University and author of Empire's Workshop, Latin America, the United States, and the Rise of a New Imperialism. He reported from Honduras 2 weeks ago, but joins us today from Paraguay. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Lanny Davis, let's begin with you. Explain exactly who you represent, who is paying you to oppose the ousted president, Manuel Zelaya.
I represent a group of business community people called SEAL, who would be the equivalent of the Chamber of Commerce, the Latin American Business Council of Honduras. I do want to say that I appeared on Democracy Now! With the assurance, Amy, that you would be a neutral moderator, yet your opening is an ideological rant that distorts the facts. For example, you said that Mr. Zelaya accepted the Arias Accords. In fact, Mr. Zelaya rejected President Arias's proposal, and the government of Mr. Micheletti has announced and has, in fact, said it would continue to discuss. So let's get the facts straight before we go any further.
Grandin, let's begin with what Lanny Davis contends, that the ousted President Zelaya has rejected the Costa Rica Accords.
No, that's wrong. 2 weeks ago, right, when the talks broke down, when Arias presented his 7-point plan, Zelaya almost immediately accepted them. And Oscar Arias came out and gave a press conference in which he regretted the fact that Micheletti, the leader of the new regime, the coup government in Honduras, rejected the accords while Zelaya accepted them fully. And one can Google the statement, Oscar Arias, Zelaya, Micheletti, and they'll find the exact quote from Oscar Arias.
Well, we'll Google this statement, and I will challenge the professor to find the quote of Zelaya saying this is unacceptable and walking out of the room. And I will challenge him to find the statement by Mr. Micheletti, which he just sent several days ago, asking Mr. Arias and the Commission of the Congress, controlled by Mr. Zelaya's party, with the chairman, a liberal, going through each of Mr. Arias's proposals. And by the way, the Congress, 95% of the Congress, even if you quarrel with plus or minus 10 votes, voted to remove Mr. Zelaya, including a majority of his own party, as did 15 members of the Supreme Court, including a majority of the Supreme Court justices who were liberal Democrats. So those are the facts. And when you describe this as a military coup and don't add that two civilian institutions of government, the judiciary and the Congress, both ordered Mr. Zelaya to be arrested or to be removed from office, you're not completely and accurately reporting the news.
Lanny Davis, are you saying that the coup president right now, Roberto Micheletti, has accepted the Arias Accords?
No, he has taken each element of the Arias Accords, which would not, by the way, permit another inaccuracy in your ideological introduction. The Arias Accords would not permit Mr. Zelaya to return as president as he was president. He would be restricted from doing anything contrary to the Constitution, such as he is not allowed to support the constitutional so-called referendum, which was found to be by the Supreme Court to be unconstitutional. Mr. Arias said that is not permitted. He has to have a coalition government composed of all parties, not just his own. So he would not be allowed to return as president, and that's really why he rejected accepting all of the elements of the Arias proposal.
Lanny Davis, I wanted, and Greg Grandin, to go back to an interview we did with President Zelaya. It was about 10 days after he was ousted. He described for Democracy Now! What happened the day he was removed from power.
They attacked my house at 5:30 in the morning. A group of at least 200 to 250 armed soldiers with hoods and bulletproof vests and rifles aimed their guns at me, fired shots, used machine guns, kicked down the doors, and just as I was in pajamas, they put me on a plane and flew me to Costa Rica.
That was the ousted President Zelaya. Lanny Davis, your response to what happened to the ousted President Zelaya.
Yeah, I don't defend what was done. He should have been put in jail, as the Supreme Court ordered him. He violated the law. The Congress voted him out of office, and he should have been arrested and prosecuted with full due process of law. So I don't defend that decision. I understand the decision because, again, what your program doesn't report are facts. So that was in the context of the day before the president of an elected country leading a mob, that's a fact, over 2,000 people, overrunning an Air Force barracks to seize ballots that were shipped in by Venezuela to conduct a referendum that the Supreme Court, by a 15-0 decision, called illegal. So the decision to ship him out of the country, I believe, in hindsight, could have been done differently. But if you don't also report that he had led a mob to overrun an Air Force barracks in violation of the two institutions of government, the Supreme Court and the Congress, at the same time that you call that a coup, it was a civilian-ordered arrest, and he defied the law and defied all findings of his own party in the Congress. If you don't also report that, Amy, you're engaging not in news but in ideological ranting, which is what I said to your producer. I would come on this show with the assurance that you would not do that, and I'm afraid you've done it again.
Professor Grandin.
Can I just jump in? There's a couple of things I'd like to contest that Mr. Davis said. One is you are reporting the facts. Micheletti, I was in Honduras when Micheletti rejected the accords and then backpedaled and said that he would accept some of them or that he would reject
Now you said he backpedaled. You didn't say that before, did you?
Can I finish? Can I?
Well, I'm glad you now conceded that point.
Am I allowed to finish? Can I finish? Sure. I let you speak, right? That it's obviously an effort to buy time, that the pressure of the international community. By the way, the rest of the U.S. allies, not just Venezuela, but Chile, Brazil, Europe, Spain, the European Union, all understand this to be a coup. Central American neighboring countries of Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala. So there's not a dispute in the international community. It's only the United States who are having a debate whether this is a coup. Second of all, let's just state right out front that Zelaya was overthrown because the business community didn't like that he increased the minimum wage. We're talking about an elite that treats Honduras as if it was its own private plantation. There's an excellent AP report published yesterday that says exactly this. The legal reasoning, all of the legal reasoning and the loaded words about mobs and overrunning that Lonnie Davis is using is all done retroactively in order to justify